You kind of expressed the idea of something feeling like you're progressing, right? And Brian, you also mentioned that we had the survival, we had the weapon mastery, and then those were kind of the predecessors to actual ranked. So getting those into the game, how important to ranked was it to have those systems before ranked came out?
Uh, well, I mean, you have to kind of remember. I mean, people forget how far PUBG's come in the past 3 years. It's come a long, long way. So we're starting from a place where we really didn't have any of those types of systems at all. And like Maynard said, we wanted a general purpose system that would serve everybody. And the weapon mastery one was the easiest one to start with because guns are such a strong thing in the game. And when that came out, I mean, you have to rewind to last year. That was a pretty widely well received feature. I think it needs some love in 2020. We are the first people to admit it. It definitely needs love in 2020. It probably needed love in 2019, but it needs some love. But then we worked on the survival mastery system, and that one was, I guess I would say, probably in some ways a little closer to serving the general population because when weapon mastery came out, I mean, we knew how many new players had a hard time with the guns because the guns in our game are notoriously great and notoriously hard. Um, and I think that system tended to serve a lot more of like the experienced players than we hoped. But when survival mastery came out, we saw uptick on that one right away. I mean, right away, that system is rewarding after every game. You get the pop up, you get something, you earn something after every game. And that wasn't exactly happening in weapon mastery because you actually had to do something like correct with a weapon, which is hard for a lot of new players, and you just don't get a chance to do it. So I think we were pretty happy by the time the survival mastery stuff came out. And then honestly, we just had to make a call of, do we go back and revisit weapon mastery and survival mastery and do more of the stuff that we want to do? We'd like to have stuff like in-game, heat maps and things like that. A lot of the stuff that people are enjoying out of the game, we know that belongs in the game at some point, but like everything, you got to prioritize. So at that point, we went back and we said, okay, it's time to build ranked.
Right. Well, and you brought up a concept there that even I struggle with. And I'm a guy that, I play some games casually. I play some games really hardcore. I typically have one or two games that I'm going really hard at, and then I'll play things just kind of off to the side, right? Like Hearthstone, for example, is a game that I'll just play here and there, and I don't follow the patch notes. I don't follow any of that. But PUBG, I grind. Tarkov, I grind.
Yep.
And you said that, Maynard, you said that like 10 to 20% of people, when you're talking about League of Legends and how competitive mode affects people there. And so when ranked is coming out here, and you mentioned these mastery systems, the survival systems, those affect every single player.
Yep.
Do you guys have like an anticipation of how much of the player base will actually use the rank mode?
Well, I would like to get into that in a second, if you don't mind. I had a couple of directions I wanted to take the previous question to first.
All day, go for it.
Right. So there were two strategic reasons that come to mind for why we needed to do the mastery systems before the rank mode. So one of them was that we talked about this need to put these progression systems into the game, and it wasn't just it wasn't just because we needed to have more progression systems. It's because the inevitable fact was that when ranked mode came out, survival title would need to die, because survival title, for all of its mechanically behaving like a progression system, it has all the appearance of a ranked system. We cannot have two such systems in the game at the same time. It would be too confusing, and it would be a very strange experience. So the very nature of bringing out ranked mode necessitates that survival title is retired. However, if survival title is the only generic progression system that all players have access to, and you replace it with a ranked mode, whereas only like a small percentage of players compared with the whole have access to, it really would suck for everybody who's not a hardcore like competitive player. So that was the first strategic reason why it had to be that way. The other reason, which I think really is the question that you really wanted to ask when you asked earlier, is yes, we needed to look at the weapons data and the survival data of players to understand, like how many kills does a good player get? How long does a good player live versus a new player versus an average player versus a top end player, in order to later on go on ahead at ranked. To set those numbers, we would need to run many simulations, many labs tests in order to gather that data, but we couldn't even begin without an estimate, and those estimates were drawn from the mastery system.
Thanks for checking out this segment of the Winner Winner podcast. Be sure to check out the full show at youtube.com/xpmedianow or the audio-only version everywhere podcasts are downloaded.